A very good evening to Bangladesh, very good afternoon to Europe, and especially Malta, a sunny island. 300 days is sunny, and I'm sure our today's special guest, lawyer and expert of Maltese immigration systems and all sort of information you needed. He's from Malta, and he's going to bring a sunny weather to us. And I would like to invite Dr. Stephan Gauci on the screen. And today, dear viewers, which is going to be on our show, and you have any question or questions which is you're going to ask now, you can put forward your questions via your comment box. And also, if you want to ask a question in later stage, please feel free to comment it. I'm not going to hold any more time. Let me bring to our special guest, Dr. Stephan Gauci, on the screen. A very good afternoon to Dr. Stephan Gauci from London and from Bangladesh.
Good afternoon and good evening to you all. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for the invitation and being part of this live stream. I'm at your disposal for running you through certain aspects of Maltese lifestyle and residence, and hopefully answering also some of the questions that will be put forward.
Brilliant. Thank you very much once again for your time. I'm sure that my audience, my colleagues, and those people, 119 million people from Bangladesh, wishes you very best wishes. Let's come back to the point. The objective of Skilled Work World and the objective of our company, which is we mentioned to you, is to establish an educated community in abroad. So we want the Bangladeshi people, Bangladeshi educated society, to move to the West and establish an educated society that can bring economic freedom, that can bring a political freedom, that can bring a global residency, to us, so we can be in a global village. So we can proudly say the Bangladeshis are everywhere in the world. Now we know everyone is willing to know about the Maltese program. So today we're going to talk about various programs, including the citizenship in Malta, global residency in Malta, digital nomad, and in particularly we'll be discussing about the student visa if we have some time. So feel free to forward your question. We'll be asking Dr. Stephan Gauci whenever we have some time. We're not going to hold any more time. Dr. Stephan Gauci, I'm sure you love to say Stephan, so I'm going to say Stephan. Let me correct myself.
Sure.
Yeah, he loves to say Stephan, which is, let's first bring to my audience why Malta. I know Malta is, we say, getaway to Europe. It's a beautiful island, has no land borders, but still is a part of Europe. And the people prefer to be an English environment, which is was probably a colony of Britain, probably in some point. And I've been there and I've experienced that no difference from the driving to anything. Everything is familiar to me. So if anybody wants to experience a British life or a colonial life, I'm sure the Malta is the right destination. So from that point, we'll start and we'll go back to the citizenship of Malta. Okay, Stephan. Stephan.
Sure. A little bit of an introduction to Malta as an island nation. First and foremost, Malta is geographically positioned at the heart of the Mediterranean Sea. It is a bridge between Europe and North Africa, always has been. And because of its natural harbors, it has always been cherished by the different powers, especially the maritime powers that have ruled over the Mediterranean throughout the centuries. Malta's megalithic temples date as far back as 7000 before Christ. This is a historical fact, technically speaking. These megalithic temples even predate Stonehenge in the UK. Malta, with its natural harbors, has been conquered by various rulers, various powers, and not only for brief periods of time, but there were certain periods which were quite lengthy. And these have contributed to the shaping of the lifestyle, the mentality, the culture. These have shaped also our legislation, the way we live, the way we speak, the way we act. Even the language is itself, how shall I say, it is a product of these different cultures that have been amongst us throughout the centuries. Amongst the greatest powers that have spent quite a few centuries in Malta, one can include the Arab world, the Knights of St. John, who spent 100 years in Malta, and today the eight-pointed cross, which is the cross of the Knights of St. John of Jerusalem, is also synonymous with Malta, and it is called the Maltese cross. And also the British Empire. Malta formed part of the British Empire after the expulsion of Napoleon from the Maltese Islands. The British spent 200 years, roughly, in Malta. Malta was a crown dependency, not a colony. And in 1964, Malta gained independence from the British Crown and became its own sovereign island, so sovereign state. The Queen of England was accepted as the Queen of Malta, and for 10 years, Malta was a small island monarchy. In 1974, Malta became a republic. The Governor General at the time, who represented the Queen in Malta, became the first president of the republic. And in 2004, Malta joined the European Union amongst 10 other member states, new member states that joined the European Union in 2004. In 2008, Malta abandoned the Maltese lira, which was the currency after independence, and adopted the euro. So today, Malta is an island nation, member of the European Union, part of the Schengen area, part of the Eurozone, and it is an island that boasts very few natural resources. But I think that what makes Malta a unique island to settle in, to live in, to raise a family in, is that it is kissed by the sunshine for 10 months a year, is able to boast that it has a very hard-working population, also renowned for its hospitality. And as a small island state within the European Union, Malta has been able to assert itself on certain policies that were EU-driven and that most of the time were also spearheaded by the Maltese. We've got our own limitations. Size is a limitation. So sometimes Malta is not taken as seriously as maybe it should be by the other powers, be it countries or other institutions within the EU. But it is what it is. It is a balance between being small, being beautiful as an island. Some selling points from a Maltese perspective are that, technically speaking, there is a stable economy, which has been on a growth curve for the past 10 years, politically stable, very low criminality rate, and excellent education facilities as well as healthcare facilities, be it private hospitals and also public hospitals. Obviously, public hospitals have limitations as to how a third country national can or cannot benefit from there, but these are things that we can eventually also delve a little bit into. But this is Malta, and as a concluding remark, I like to describe Malta as an espresso coffee. It is small, but very intense. So welcome to Malta.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. It's a brief but it's sweet. As you mentioned, like espresso. It's I know it's bitter to me, but I'm sure those who drink, which is very tasty. So it's sweet to me. The brief you have given to Malta. I'm lucky to be experienced some of those Maltese experience you have said now, and I'm sure the audiences are going to watch us in future and are watching now. They will understand the importance, and I'm sure this island is very known to Bangladesh. It's not the first time because the many people went for work, study, and on different purposes. But today we're going to talk about, first of all, say some programs that can attract the third country nationals, which is you mentioned what the third country. If you can say a little bit what third country means here, and then what are the options in terms of the citizenship in Malta, and slowly we're going to go to global residency program. I mean, if you cover in all those three in one go, and then lastly we're going to talk about digital nomad and study. And before we draw some questions to you, but first of all, start from the global residency programship in Malta, or citizenship in Malta.
Sure. So by third country national, what we mean is that anyone who is not Maltese, anyone who is not from the European Union, meaning nationality of the European Union, and anyone who does not come from the countries forming part of the EEA, the European Economic Area, including also Switzerland. So anyone that comes from outside these countries is called, there's a term that is used within European circles, and the acronym is TNC, third country national. It's not meant to be in any way negative or disparaging to the individuals coming from these third countries. It does not mean that there are third countries, third world countries, the way we used to speak maybe a few years back. So I would like to clarify that point. But this is what is meant, that they are not Maltese. Looking at it from a Maltese perspective, had it been Italy or France, I would have said they are not Italian, they are not French. They are not from the EU, and they are not from the EEA and Switzerland. The reason why we make this distinction is because certain programs are open to all the world, certain programs are targeting EU nationals, and certain programs are targeting third country nationals. So if you are a third country national, you're not eligible for a program that is targeting a European Union national, and vice versa. That is what we mean by this term, third country national. Citizenship is the most prestigious of all the programs, and I will immediately say, without any further ado, that it is the most expensive program that the Maltese government provides. The requirements are quite onerous, but also the benefits are the highest that one can imagine. Technically speaking, between myself and the third country national who acquires citizenship under Maltese law by through the Citizenship by Investment program, will have acquired practically all the same rights and obligations that I, being a Maltese national today, have acquired through my Maltese nationality. The only difference between myself and, for example, Mr. Arifin is that I was born in Malta and I have Maltese nationality by birth. He was not born in Malta, and as a result, he acquired nationality through either a program or one of the other means of acquiring nationality in Malta. The Citizenship by Investment program, as I said, is quite onerous. The government agency performs a thorough due diligence with respect to the main applicant, who most of the time is the main income earner within the family. On the application, the main applicant can include the spouse, a person that he is in a stable relationship, but not necessarily marriage, which is recognized as if it were marriage, so cohabitant couples, for example, the children from that union, The children of the spouse, even if they are from a previous union or from a previous relationship, the parents also can be included in the application of the main applicant. There are a number of criteria that need to be fulfilled. There are a number of criteria that need to be fulfilled at the initial stages during the application process and even after the passport has been issued. And technically speaking, all the same rights that I enjoy would be the same rights that an applicant, a successful application, would have enjoyed. The due diligence is extensive. Because of that, the program, the minimum time frame for the program to be completed is roughly 12 months. There is a longer period program, but slightly cheaper compared to the fast track, which takes 36 months to be completed. And these are elements where residency need to be proven in Malta, and there are criteria that that amount to residency. And there are certain restrictions, but there are also certain flexible opportunities there as well. Yes.
Sorry to cut you off here. When you say certain requirements, the investment, can we say the figures at this stage, or you want to say it a bit later on?
I can give you the figures. The figures, technically speaking, for example, if we're looking at, so one of the criteria that needs to be satisfied is that a contribution needs to be made to the Maltese economy. This is why it is called nationality for services rendered by direct investment. If we're looking at the 12-month program, there the contribution for the main applicant alone, it is 750,000 euros. The applicant also needs to acquire immovable property in Malta or rent immovable property in Malta. The minimum acquisition price is of about 360,000 euros for the property if it is acquired. If we're looking at a rent, it needs to be a minimum 16,000 euros per annum in rent. The ownership or the rental needs to be maintained for 5 years, exclusively for the main applicant and his family. So he cannot purchase it to rent it out and derive an income out of it for the first 5 years. You can start with a rental, and as time goes by, you fall in love with a property and you decide to purchase it, and you replace the rental property with the purchased property. Or you might purchase a property or rent a property like something else and decide to move. But as long as you always have a property in Malta during those 5 years, everything is fine. The authorities will document it, fine, but there's no major issue. After the 5 years, you can retain the property, you can commercialize it by renting it out if you want to. If, on the other hand, you want to sell it or you don't want to rent property any longer beyond the 5 years, you can do so. The majority of people, however, still maintain a physical presence in Malta because they find it convenient. One of the items that I failed to mention in the introduction to Malta was that Malta has excellent connections via the air traffic to various locations, be it the major cities like London, Paris, Frankfurt, Istanbul, directly to Dubai. But there are also a number of other destinations across Europe, which are smaller airports or smaller cities, but still there's a very good service. So most of our clients, most of the people that seek to obtain Maltese nationality would do so because they want to have a stronger and facilitate a European presence. The families that also relocate to Malta most of the time will also have at their forefront the education of their children, for example, which is based on European Union elements and basically also our common law ancestry in education. This is quite an interesting program from an Asian perspective, and a lot of Chinese in the past have benefited and acquired Maltese nationality through this program, Vietnamese, and maybe one should also add United States nationals that have actually move to Malta. This is a program, however, that is not only intended for third country nationals. This is open also to European Union nationals. I also had the opportunity of assisting in the past a Dutch family that decided to relocate to Malta through nationality. And I can't remember the name of the individual, but I'm sure that the name of Farage during Brexit comes to mind, especially with Commonwealth countries like Malta and Bangladesh. But what I mean to say is that when Brexit came into being, a lot of English who did not want or were not in agreement with Brexit and did not want to lose their European Union nationality decided to go to either of two routes. The ones that had Irish ancestry could acquire an Irish passport and remain European Union nationals through the Irish passport. And those who were unable, because they did not have Irish ancestry, could only do so if they acquired the Maltese passport. And you'll ask me, why did you mention Farage? As I said, I don't remember the name of the guy who was in the background supporting Farage and the Brexit movement, but this particular individual had acquired Maltese nationality through the Citizenship by Investment program so that he does not as well lose the European Union nationality benefits. But he was in favor of Brexit. I'm sure he had his good reasons, and I'm sure also that he had his good reasons to acquire Maltese nationality. The guy definitely lives in Malta. I've seen him in the news recently, but I cannot remember the name. That is the Citizenship by Investment program. The criteria, as I mentioned, are quite onerous. There is a thorough due diligence process that is conducted by the Maltese government. The Maltese government is under scrutiny by the European Union because obviously the European Union does not want Maltese nationality and by definition also European nationality to be granted cheaply without the required due diligence. And I understand the motivations of the European Union there. But nationality remains something that each member state can regulate. And recently there was also the recommendation of the Attorney General, which the European Union Attorney General, which found in favor of Malta and asked the European Court of Justice to throw the Commission's case out of the window. The reason being that nationality is for the member states to regulate internally. So still, despite all these pressures, the Maltese government wants to attract serious individuals, serious families of good repute and good standing. And it is the reason also why the due diligence is quite thorough and goes into detail. So it is an interesting program, but it comes with its own challenges.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for a detailed explanation, and I'm sure that there will be further questions comes from my colleague. There's one question here, says Malta's global residency program accommodate families and dependents. Yes, I think Stephan has already mentioned it. Do you want to make any more comments here? Or
yes, all the programs that Malta provides technically accommodate for the families to be part of the application. So we've spoken primarily here so far about the Citizenship by Investment program, but the Residency by Investment program does the same. It is the benefits that change. The Global Residency program, which is a residency program, but primarily confers, special tax status in Malta to the individual, to the successful applicant and his family, delivers the same result. So the Global Residency program, yes, you can include the spouse, the children who are of majority age, meaning 18 plus, but are still financially dependent on the main applicant. So these can also be included. And if the child is incapable of looking after himself or herself, and I don't want to use any other term, I'm sure that we understand each other here, that remains also a dependent. So the fact that that child might be beyond the age of 25 years, it's still that child is considered a dependent. because it is financially dependent on the main applicant. So yes, all the programs cater for this. One item that I would like to mention also about the global residency program is that the global residency program, unlike the other programs, allows also to bring the successful applicant is allowed to bring a domestic employee with him. So if he can or if she can demonstrate and prove that, for example, there was a live-in nanny living with the family under an employment contract in the third country, be it Bangladesh, be it India, be it wherever, if they can demonstrate that in their home country they had this domestic employee under an employment contract, that person can also be brought to Malta, have the contract converted to a Maltese regulated contract, but still that person would be able to move with the family. And the intention there is that the kids will most probably have already gotten used to this person. They love this person. This person is considered as an extension of the family. This person might even travel with the family when they go on holidays abroad. Everyone to their own, after all. But the Maltese legislator decided to also accommodate this eventuality. So the global residence program allows for this element as well.
Yes. Now, to make it a bit more clarified to our audiences, because we discussed about the citizenship by investment, and also we discussed about the global residency program. The benefits are almost similar, as I understood. There are few bits and pieces here and there.
So allow me to immediately step in. The citizenship by investment program is the only program that confers nationality. All the other programs confer residence, confer certain rights, but they do not grant nationality. So it is only the citizenship.
Not even in certain time, like if they spend 5, 10 years or 20 years.
That's a different nationality acquisition. There are others, like for example, spending 5 years in the last 12 years in Malta, 5 years in the last 7 years in Malta, and you acquire nationality through the length of your stay. Obviously, the individual would have an employment in Malta, paying taxes, social security contributions in Malta. Most of the time, these people have children who go to Maltese schools. So literally, these families would have already integrated into the Maltese lifestyle, into the Maltese economy, but not through a program. It is a right acquired via the length of stay that the individual has spent in Malta.
Brilliant. There
is also nationality acquired through marriage. So if Mr. Arifin had to marry a Maltese girl, by definition, he acquires Maltese nationality. So there is that opportunity as well, and it is an opportunity that in the past has been used and abused. I have to say as well. If you happen to be in Malta, you do not acquire Maltese nationality, but a woman gives birth to her child in Malta. That child is entitled to Maltese nationality. Not necessarily the parents will acquire Maltese nationality, but obviously once that Maltese national was born in Malta, then the parents have certain rights to stay in Malta because of the nationality of that child. I'm not saying that the child will not also have the nationality of the parents just because the child was born in Malta. That is a case then of dual nationality. But we're focusing here on the acquisition of Maltese nationality. So yes, there are other methods of acquiring Maltese nationality. Here we are focusing primarily on the programs. So the citizenship by investment program is the only program that confers nationality and residence at the same time. All the other programs, and we'll focus now on the global residence program, grant residence, they grant tax rights, and I will explain what I mean by tax rights. And there are certain rules and restrictions, obviously, like everything else. In the global residence program, the main applicant, together with the family, upon a successful application, will acquire a residential status in Malta and will be granted a special tax status under Maltese law. What does this mean? As a remnant of our colonial British times, I, as a Maltese national, am taxed under Maltese law at progressive rates of tax. So there is a bracket which is 0% tax. There is a bracket which goes up to 15, 20, 25, 28 if you're a parent, 30, and 35 is the maximum. So there are these different brackets. If an individual, a third country national, acquires Maltese residence under the Global Residence Program, these brackets do not apply. That individual will be taxable under Maltese law on what we call a remittance basis, and I will explain what remittance basis means, at the flat rate of 15% tax. So the individual will not have the different brackets, and will not have a 0% bracket, but immediately 15%. The threshold is a minimum of 15,000 in tax per annum, and anything beyond 100,000 is taxed at 15%. So you bring to Malta 75,000, you pay 15,000 in tax. You bring 100, 15% is 15,000. You bring 200, 15% is 30,000. What do I mean by remittance basis? Remittance basis is a basis of taxation, which again is a remnant from our colonial period. The income tax acts were promulgated in Malta in 1948 when we were still a British colony. And what this means is that the individual will be taxable on any income generated outside Malta, which is brought to Malta. Anything which is not brought to Malta is not taxed in Malta. It might be taxable elsewhere, and we would need to verify where and how that will be taxed. But it is income that is derived outside Malta, which is brought into Malta, that suffers tax at the 15% flat rate. Any income that that individual derives in Malta, so through an employment or through the sale of property or any other income that is generated in Malta, will be taxable under the normal rules, maximum tax rate being 35%. How does this differ? What is the remittance basis and how does it differ from worldwide taxation? I, being born in Malta, so domiciled in Malta and resident in Malta, I am taxable on a worldwide basis. So if I go to London and I earn €1,000 for a consultancy that I give to Mr. Arifin, I am taxable of that €1,000 in Malta, although I performed my work in London, outside Malta. If Mr. Arifin comes to Malta and I give him the consultancy in my office, then I'm taxable in Malta as well. So that is worldwide taxation. Regardless of where I have derived the income, I am taxable in Malta. But Mr. Arifin, since he is not domiciled in Malta, but let's assume he is resident in Malta, he will be taxed only on that portion of the income that he would have earned in the current year and brought it to Malta. Any income that Mr. Arifin acquired last year, let's say he had in his bank account, he remained with a balance carried forward to 2024 of 100,000. Okay? From the 31st of December to the 1st of January, that income in 2023, in 2024 becomes capital, and capital is not taxed under Maltese law. So anything that you bring from your savings of previous years will not be taxable and will not be taken into consideration under the Global Residence Program. But anything that you earn in 2024, which is income in 2024, will then be taxed at the rate of 15% on anything that you bring into Malta.
Brilliant.
This particular program also has criteria like property, that you need to acquire or rent property in Malta. The thresholds are lower. For example, rental compared to the Citizenship by Investment Program, where the minimum is 16,000. The minimum here is of 9,600 and 8,700. The reason being that although Malta is tiny, the government decided that certain locations need to be given a little bit of a stimulus. So certain locations were given a lower threshold so that foreigners might be interested in acquiring or renting in those regions.
Yeah, like I've seen island of Comino probably is one of the island where there's slightly lower.
The island of Comino is no longer inhabited. There is a hotel. It is a touristic location nowadays with fantastic clear blue seas. You have to see them
Gozo,
to believe them.
or maybe Gozo Island, island of Gozo.
Gozo is the sister island, yes. Gozo is the more rural of the two main islands. Malta is the economic center, the educational center, although there is the University of Malta is also present in Gozo as well. Yes, these are locations which are considered as the south of Malta. Now, to be honest with you, Malta is a rock at the heart of the Mediterranean. You cannot really speak of north and south. But the government had decided that to give a little bit more stimulus to certain locations, the south of Malta has lower thresholds to entice people economically to invest in those locations. The other restriction that there is on the global residence program is that an individual can spend as little as 1 day in Malta, but cannot spend more than 6 months in any one jurisdiction. So you can spend a month in Italy, a month in France, and each month you spend it in 12 different jurisdictions, or 2 months in 6 different jurisdictions. But if you spend 6 months in any one jurisdiction, the global residence program is lost and all the benefits that go with it. That is the only main restriction that this global residence program has for third country nationals that decide to apply and benefit from it.
I know we are already 36 minutes in a program. I promise that we will be in 40 minutes. It's fine. We'll be just making a bit summary of it. So we discussed about 2 programs here. One by investment of buying a property, also as renting. So if I may ask you, which one is more convenient? Is renting or buying a property? That's one question. And if we compare 2 of this program, which is investment and global residency program, which one are you going to rate in terms of processing time and what's called this compliance issue? Which one will be much easier for the viewer which is watching now?
So first and foremost, from a timing perspective, the global residence program will take roughly 6 months from the submission of the application. So we as accredited agents need to perform a due diligence from our side. We need to put together the applications and the supporting documentation on behalf of the client. This takes as long as the cooperation and assistance that we receive from the client. So if the client provides us with everything immediately and is immediately responsive, we can shorten the timeframes of the due diligence and the preparation of the documents. If, on the other hand, the client drags their feet, and I had clients, unfortunately, that dragged their feet because they had so many other commitments in their life, but then we depend on how fast the client responds. That's point number 1. So the global residence program takes roughly 6 months from the date when we submit the application. The citizenship by investment program takes a minimum of 12 months if it is the fast track program. If the client opts for the slower paced program, it's 36 months. It's 3 years.
Okay, brilliant.
Your question was also about property.
Yeah, there is one also question related to there, but I'm sure you have covered most. But yeah, related to the property, either renting and purchasing, so that if you can cover, and
yes,
there is a related question there. Thank you.
Renting and purchasing very much depends on what the client himself has set as his objectives. The interesting part of renting is that once the rental agreement is up, technically speaking, you have no further commitments in Malta and you can pack and leave. The beautiful side of owning property is that it belongs to you. It is an investment. There is the property market is always on the rise in Malta, and there is an increase of 10% per annum from an investment perspective. After the 5-year period is up, the minimum compliance period after the passport has been granted, after 5 years, you can rent it out. So even if you are not physically resident in Malta, you can commercialize it and derive an income out of it, or leave it there for your use and enjoyment. It very much depends on the client's perspectives. Obviously, a rental is not a long-term investment. A rental is money that is literally invested by giving it to a landlord who will be very happy to receive a return on his own investment. But technically speaking, you have no title of ownership. You have nothing in hand. You've just derived the benefit at the lowest economic expense possible. So that is the choice between rental and acquisition. I have always advised clients, for the first year you rent, you look around, you find a property that you have actually fallen in love with and you really, really want, and with calm and peace of mind, you get the professionals involved, you look through the contract, you do not rush, and you do everything as it should be. And then with the authorities, it's not a problem because we will replace the rental property with an owned property. That is the least of our worries. But property acquisitions should not be rushed. And in my experience, the clients that have taken my advice have been very happy clients because they found benefit in, okay, losing 16,000 in rent in a year, but without any economic benefit thereafter. But long term, they were happy because they found an apartment by the sea or the house with the garden because they want to bring their dog. And they had the opportunity of finding the property that is actually of their choice. So it all depends on the objectives of the individual. Can I please go through the question so that I can address it?
Yeah, it's just like, is this permit need to be renewed every year, each year? And also the question is, somebody already in residency program, can they switch to a different program? Also, the English or Maltese language skill necessary, English probably, and undertake the purchase of the property. Yes. So when buying a property, can an Englishman, this person who takes it, he's from Britain, so probably he's interested in investing in Malta. So probably his point of view is that.
So first item, Maltese and English. These are the official languages of Malta. All the paperwork is done in both languages and they are of equal value. Obviously, with the foreigners, English is the prevalent language and it is what it is. Unlike other jurisdictions, for example, in Cyprus, it is the Greek Cypriot language that is the official language, but then everything has to be translated. In our case, even the legislation, it is both in Maltese and in English, and both have equal force. So that is the language issue. Yes, the ability of communicating in one of the official languages of Malta is essential. So you do not need to learn Maltese, although it is a fantastic language, a hybrid between Arabic, Latin, French, Italian, and English. You do not need to learn Maltese, but English is a must, and the ability to speak good English that one is understood when speaking. So those are also amongst the criteria across all the programs. The question about the acquisition by an Englishman, can I see it again, please?
Yeah, let me see. Yeah.
Sorry.
Which is like undertaking a purchase of property if necessary.
Yes. So as we were saying, the programs allow to either purchase or rent. As long as the minimum criteria are satisfied, you can choose either one or the other. What I have also been saying is that you can switch from one to the other. So if you start with a rental and want to switch to a property ownership because you found the house of your dreams, then yes, you can do so as well. But it is either or. During the application process for the citizenship by investment program, you do not need to satisfy the minimum criteria. So if you rent a property, say at 10,000 euros a year, during the application process, that will be taken into consideration to fulfill the 12-month residency criterion. But from the moment that the letter of approval in principle is obtained from the Maltese authorities, meaning your passport application, your nationality application has been granted by the Maltese authorities, at that point in time, you will have 2 months within which to bring your rental contract in line with the requirements of the law. So if 16,000 is the minimum rent that you have to pay, you either agree with your landlord that you're going to raise the rent from 10,000 to 16, and he will be a very happy bunny, or else you find another property which commands that kind of rental price.
Okay, just quickly cover. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm sure that we are going to finish very soon. I'm sorry that we are taking a bit longer,
No worries.
but
No worries.
would you please talk about little bit about a digital nomad? I know it's an extensive subject, but just to give a summary, because we also offering digital nomad application services via you. So if you could please give our audience a little bit thought, because there is a question related to this where.
Yes.
What are the eligibility requirements obtaining Malta residency work permit, digital nomad visa? So many questions. I'm sure that Dhaka team is going to support it, but let's
So
hear
there
from
are,
Stephan a bit more about digital nomad.
yes. So with respect to the digital nomad, these are individuals who are either themselves self-employed and are rendering a service to a third party, or they are employed by a company not in Malta, a company that is registered abroad, and they are employed by that company, but they perform their work from Malta. So they are resident in Malta. They are under this particular program, which is called the Digital Nomad, and as a result, they are granted special tax rates similar to the Global Residence Program, where they pay at 15% taxation. The requirements are not as onerous as they are for the Global Residence Program or the Citizenship by Investment, obviously. But yes, they need to rent property in Malta. They need to have a valid passport. They need to have travel and medical insurance that covers them throughout their stay in Malta, which is also another a requirement under all the programs. Technically speaking, it is an application. And sorry, I need to stress that the digital nomad is only eligible to third country nationals. So EU nationals, EEA, and Swiss nationals are unable to apply under this program.
Okay, brilliant. So the last bit, I'm sure that we're going to discuss about student visa. I know the study program is a again extensive program, but as some of my audiences ask about the study options, for example, there is a question if I can take on the screen. Let me just quickly see if I can. But let's talk out. I'll bring in some point. So, what is the future of a student or a study visa? Like, for example, a student interested to go to Malta, what sort of benefits they can have in terms of education? If you compare in terms of educational system and the benefit after the study, these two things, like during a study and post study, which is related to a question which is I'll probably find in some point. Thank you.
So
yeah,
I saw something also about the cost of living, and I will try to address that as well. So with respect to foreigners who come to study in Malta, there is the possibility, of course, there is the possibility of obtaining a student visa as long as the individual has enrolled into a recognized institution for a particular course. The majority of the foreigners that enroll in Malta are either University of Malta students or MCAST, which is a technical institute, which is less strong or less focused on academia, but more focused on the practical side of things. So, and as long as the individual has been admitted and accepted in one of these institutions, and there's also the Malta American University or the American University of Malta, that's the name. As long as you are enrolled into one of these institutions, the student visa will be granted. What is interesting here also is that when it comes to certain third country nationals who enroll in certain courses like nursing, the medical field, dental technicians, and what have you, the possibilities of work in Malta are there. So most of these students that eventually qualify during their stay in Malta eventually find employment in Malta. The beautiful side also is that if they have been long-term residents and eventually acquired certain residential rights in Malta, they might also be able to travel to Europe and acquire resident status in other European Union countries. But there are certain criteria that need to be fulfilled, obviously. But yes, the opportunities are there. There are opportunities, especially, I'm looking at it from the point of view of first you get your qualification and then having the opportunity of staying over to work in the country. These opportunities are very strong in the medical sector, in the tourism sector, catering sector, laboratory technician sector. These are quite popular with third country nationals.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. We are almost about.
What was the question on cost of living?
The cost of living while they are staying in Malta, which is you have covered some of them, but probably during the study time, which could be probably related, like a student accommodations and other costs.
So student accommodation, there is quite a variety. For example, if you enroll at the university has its own accommodation that it is being marketed to students. Obviously, being literally living on campus, the lifestyle is excellent from a student perspective, but it comes at an expense. Then there are other locations which are either within close proximity, meaning walking distance, or else with a scooter or by public transport, they're easily reachable to the university. And there, the rental prices can be a little bit more convenient. There is also the possibility, and it's not the first time that it happens, that students will team up and, for example, rent an apartment, a 3-bedroom apartment between 4 people, 6 people. They share a room. They have the common living areas. And they share the rent, so the expense will be contained. But maximum of 6 people in an apartment. This is by law. You cannot have more than 6 people in a 3-bedroom apartment. Cost of living is always a bone of contention. The cost of living in Malta is what it is. Malta is not cheap to live. We have limited natural resources. Most of our products are imported, so quite naturally we're also susceptible to the market forces of the international market. So if the price of oil goes up, obviously this is going to have a ripple effect on everything else. Most of our vegetables are locally produced. Meats are locally produced, but we also have the importation of meats from abroad. We have a very good lifestyle, that's true, but it can come at an expense. So I cannot tell you Malta is cheap because I would be lying and I would be bringing you to Malta and enticing you to Malta on false pretenses. And as a lawyer, I cannot do that.
Brilliant. So I want to hear from you a closing statement. Like, I know you have covered almost everything you could be covered in almost in an hour. We are very grateful. But if you could please wrap up with your conclusion remarks to our audiences. Thank you very much.
My concluding remarks are, first and foremost, thank you for the opportunity of addressing you and of being of assistance. I look forward to the opportunity of addressing this audience or another audience on the same topics or to delve into greater detail. I am at your disposal. You can definitely reach me through Mr. Arifin and his team. I will be delighted to be of assistance and to delve into further detail where necessary. Malta is an interesting location. For certain jurisdictions, maybe it's very little explored and very little is known. But it is an island state that has a lot to offer despite its limited resources. And from a lifestyle perspective, there's a lot to offer as well. Gastronomy and cuisine is really varied. Maltese cuisine is based on Mediterranean recipes. I always say that the French are very well known for the refined cuisine. The Italians are renowned for their rich cuisine and rich fresh ingredients. Malta is a mix between the two, but we also bring to Malta a variety of different cuisines with the settlers that have enhanced our experience. So you will find cuisines from all over the world: Lebanon, China, Thai cuisine, other Asian countries, French, Italian, German, US, We have it all. Beautiful beaches, small, don't expect anything like a Miami beach from a size perspective, but definitely, and if you do have the time of going through the internet, look out for the Blue Lagoon in Comino. It is a very, very popular destination, and it's like being in Bahamas in the Mediterranean. So I hope that I'll be able to welcome more opportunities to address this audience, and eventually to welcome quite a few of you to Malta, whether it is for holiday or for business. I will be at your disposal.
Brilliant. Let me address you formally, which is Dr. Stephan Gauci, for your time. Please take our bow from us and my team from Dhaka and from Dubai and from London. I'm sure this information is going to be stored and it will be used as a case. I'm sure there are lots of information you have given, and that's a massive class for us. Yes, let's come back to the Malta. I've been there. I enjoyed thoroughly. I enjoyed the Blue Lagoons, as I mentioned, Comino or Gozo, or even in mainland of Malta. It's wonderful experience. I never felt that I was not in Britain. And those are really think about Malta, which is the beautiful Malta is with the sunny weather. That is one of the most important things in Europe, and which is you never are going to purchase in Europe anywhere, I'm sure. And dear audience, those who have supported us with the comments, questions, we thank you very much from the bottom of our heart. And those are watching now and watch in future, please share and like our program to your friends. And if you have any question, and if you want to really know more about this Malta and wanted to really pursue your applications through us, please contact to our Dhaka office or Dubai office or in London. And in any point, we'll be required to contact to Stephan Gauci, which will be, and I'm sure you have just seen his expertise, his experience, everything he said from his memory, which is very important and very useful for us. And we'd like to thank you once again and wishing a very good afternoon and good night to Dhaka and good afternoon and good morning to US. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.